And okay, got the red dot. Hit go live. Are we live? Looks like we're live. And
Not yet. At least not on my end. Oh, here we go.
refresh. We're
Screen's
going. We're
turning on.
going. Only 4 viewers. Yeesh.
Don't worry. We'll pick up more later.
I get we're a couple of small YouTubers, but come on, you think with a topic like Arch is a grifter, we would have gotten more.
No, unfortunately, just the simple fact we are small YouTubers, no one's really gonna notice.
We're probably
That's
the
just
only ones
YouTube
to notice.
nowadays.
We'll give it a few minutes. How was your day?
My day, well, I spent most of it going back and forth across town. Unfortunately, most of the on-ramps to the highway going across my city, plus the fact of the state fair and the Queen dying, it meant that there was a ton of people out on the road, and most of them were insane. Let me tell you, folks, the greatest pain of a New Mexican driver is dealing with drivers from everywhere else. You see, we have some of the fastest speed lanes in the country, typically going anywhere from 70 to 100. These people, especially you Californians, don't seem to understand that. Either you go too fast or you go too slow. And you
You're
often
too
go out of your
slow.
way you have to go out of your way to try and hit me.
Yeah, friggin' crazy drivers. It's worse here on the weekends. We're in one of those college towns where the kids would get drunk and go drag racing on the local roads. More than a handful of accidents. The intersection I live on, they actually had to set up speed traps more than once. It is a road with more than one speed bump.
But you're lucky you actually get speed traps. The cops here don't give well, I would like to use some particularly strong language, but I'm not going to. Let's
We,
just say they're Albuquerque cops and leave it at that.
hey, all right, give me a.
Yeah, Zane, considering the fact that you are north of California and you're also south of Washington State, I don't doubt you guys have some pretty bad drivers too.
Let me ping a few more people with chat link, not the chat link, the stream link. We might we might as well just call this Knights of the Dead era at this point. At least we'll get Swordsman. He just got on.
Oh, you live in Washington. Oh dear.
That's even worse.
My town is in Florida. His turn signal, what is that? Yeah, yeah, let me put you this way. Turn signals are the law here, but considering most of our drivers tend to be south from the border, where it's more suggestion than anything else. I mean, but let me ask you this. Do you have drivers who slow way down when they go up to a turn, and only when they're about to turn do they then turn on that turn signal?
Yep. We call them
Good
senior
Lord.
citizens.
We call them idiots. And probably about a paragraph of other obscenities.
Yeah.
Like, let me put you this way. This is a little highway story from today. So we're on our way back from going across town and coming back. Me and my dad were in two separate vehicles, both of us are driving Camrys. Uh, he gets on one side of the highway. I am trying to get to over to where he's at, and there's a blue SUV being driven by a soccer mom who decides to stay in my blind spot and will not move. So after waiting about a minute or so for this lady either to slow down or go past me, I decide to just speed up, go around her, and then zip across the highway trying to get behind my dad. As I'm doing this guy in a white Taurus decides to speed right up, and he nearly hit me right as I got into my dad's lane. Like, literally, he's all the way in the back. I'm coming over, and this guy speeds up just to zoom right past me, even though there was at least 20 feet of clearance that he could have gone between then and there. Needless to say,
You think that's crazy? Well, one time down here, I saw something that I can only describe as a redneck playing GTA in real life. Guy jumped from one pickup truck to another, and then jacked the wheel from the other guy.
you want you want an even crazier than that one? Do you remember back when Biden first decided that raising the gas prices, blaming it on Ukraine and saying that everybody should go buy a hybrid or electric vehicle kind of made everybody a little crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a vehicle, I think it was a pickup, I don't know what type, but it was in the parking lot of my workplace. I work at a grocery store. Somebody took a drill to the gas tank and drained all the gas out of it. It had a quart of gas. It was only a quarter full. Who has time to drill open someone's gas tank? Come on. And the insane part is, we have it on camera. We actually showed it to everybody at the store. It was hilarious. Well, not hilarious to the person who owned the vehicle. It kind of sucked for him, but it was still hilarious. It's like Florida man level stupid, but it's worse because it's in New Mexico.
New Mexico man is trying to outcompete Florida man.
New Mexico man is perpetually high on blue sky.
Alright, it seems we got a few people in the chat. So, let's get this started. So you're probably wondering why we're all here today. You see, it all started with Razorfist's no hate watching video. In it, Razor made some very salient points, and we'll get onto those. But in doing so, showed why, in spite of his media hot takes and abject hipsterism, he is the last honest man on this platform. Razorfist proposed that the rings of power be ignored and left to rot in obscurity, which makes sense. Most streaming media gets their power from engagement, and engagement is both positive and negative feedback. This, however, triggered a few people in, well, let's call it the grifter community. We had responses from those like Arch Warhammer, who, when he isn't being wrong about Star Wars like his buddy Sargon, is running a culture war channel, and also the hosts of EFAP, a culture war-focused media podcast. To say that these people didn't get Razor's point would be charitable. But as I am not one for Hadlon's Razor for those who've previously shown signs of malice, I cannot help but consider the fact that these influencers stand to profit a great deal from hate watching. Tonight we're going to cover their takes, starting with the original take from Razorfist himself, and we will discuss why, at least I think, that Arch and Razor are, without a doubt, grifters who wish to continue the culture war for their relevancy and profits. This may seem inflammatory, but it is the only logical conclusion to why otherwise intelligent influencers are continuing to hate watch media they believe is bad or know is bad and continue to make content covering it.
In short, I think a more accurate term for these people is not grifters, it's not hate watchers, it's hate farmers. They farm for hate. That's what produces their, well, income, if you will. And that's why they're never going to stop. They have put their thumb on the pulse of a raging community that will hate and despise everything because they've been raised to hate and despise everything. And because of this, they're never going to stop.
Oof. And that's just unfortunate at the end of the day. I used to watch EFAP ever since their first stream. I used to be a fan. Of course, after their 24-hour stream, it started to become less, oh, these guys have really good takes, and oh, these guys sure do have a lot of fucking memes and... Oops.
Don't worry, it's just one. If we make it two, then we're in trouble.
For those who don't know me off of from just the videos, I edited out a lot of swearing. I'm from Brooklyn. I swear like a sailor.
It's worse for you, Koopa. My last name is Sailor.
Okay, but I was a fan of EFAP and Arch at one point, but both of them just became... Well, Arch went up his own rear end at one point, and I was like, why am I even watching this? And with EFAP, they just continue to self-congratulate themselves.
If I have to be honest with you, I was never a fan of EFAP. I've never been a fan of the streamers who think it's a good idea to waste about 10 hours worth of my time. That's not to say people shouldn't watch that sort of content. It's their own decision. But for me, why do you need to waste 10 hours when 1 hour, 20 minutes, 5 minutes could be all you need to properly explain your point? For me, it just felt like, well, for lack of a better term, extortion.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Yeah. As for Arch, well... Arch is a complicated guy. I don't personally dislike him, but, well, when he's right, he's usually right on the money. Same with his buddy Sargon. They tend to be pretty well-researched guys.
Except when it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah, when they're wrong, it's typically because they do it off the cuff, and they don't do any research, and they already have some kind of personal bias. Unfortunately, those personal biases are so obnoxiously loud that a lot of people, especially from the 40K community, which I am a part of, well, they've largely distanced themselves from these guys. You could say it's for political reasons, but I think it's just because they don't know when to shut up.
No, they do not. It's even worse with Sargon. He insists that the Jedi are groomers now. I know. I felt that too. Hey. So before we get into anything, we should probably start with the hot take that started it all. And since we're talking about EFAP, we might as well steal their format. But don't worry, guys. After 2 hours, we're done. 2 hours is the best length for a stream. Not too long and not too short. Yep.
Yeah.
Alright, let me switch this open. Okay, here we go. Got the watch together ready?
Yeah, quick question. Do you want me to, because I currently have the Discord audio on my headphone, do you want me to also put the actual video audio?
The video audio will come off on my end on OBS. I have the window capture, so it will capture the sound on the video. And if it doesn't, chat will let us know.
Copy that. Let's go then.
It all began with the forging of the Lord of the Rings. 4 books were given to the boomers, most muddle-minded, self-important, and authoritarian of all beings, who collapsed into paroxysms of hemp-huffing hippie glee, while J.R.R. Tolkien sneered on in contempt at their Bolshevik buffoonery. 3 animated films were given to Gen X, nearly as bad as the boomers, yet unjustifiably persuaded of their own superiority, despite being responsible for bullshit like America, against the ATM machine and the entire discography of REM. Millennials made you with 3 films, the fairest in all the land, which won myriad Oscars. And also Golden Globes, who the hell cares about that? And then there were those other 3 movies that were fun until the 15th fucking orc fight. But they were...
Thanks, Razor.
For another Lord of the Rings was made, only this one was pronounced Rings, in the land of Snortor, in the fires of Mount Coom.
Okay, I need to pause it for a second, because there's a point I need to address. Let me back this up just a little bit.
This one was...
Okay. I know this is going to sound incredibly racist, but let me just put it this way.
She doesn't have a beard.
Well, it's not just the beard, it's the skin color. I don't have a problem with there being black characters in Lord of the Rings. I have a problem with you twisting the lore to do it. In the case of the dwarves here, there's no explanation given as to why this chick is a completely different skin color to the rest of her people. And in the show, the rest of her people are white. They are pasty cream white. Yet, where's the beard? Where did she come from? Personally, if you wanted to stick a black character into Lord of the Rings and make them a focus, you have a lot of options to do this. The Easterlings, the Rodrians, and what have you. Basically, the Persians, the Africans. They exist in the realm of Lord of the Rings.
Do what the Shadow of War game did.
Exactly. You have a lot of opportunities to create very interesting characters. Characters that would be interesting because they would have had to travel from their side of the world to our side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have had great stories. In many ways, it reminds me a lot of that Robin Hood movie where Morgan Freeman was an Arab in that movie. And you know what? It worked because they didn't change any characters. They made a new one, and they made that character interesting. Well, who is he? Where did he come from? How does he know Robin Hood? Well, he's a buddy of his from the Crusade. He's a man of strong morals. He doesn't exactly agree to stealing, but he will go along with Robin Hood's ways anyway. But instead of doing something creative like this, they think it's a good idea to take this universe and make it stupid. Yep. Oh, where does this woman come from? Who cares? Just be glad we have some diversity in our show. Screw you.
Just because we're picking on Archie's hot takes doesn't mean that we're defending Lord of the Rings, something many of the EFAP fanbase don't seem to understand.
Yeah, make no mistake, this is trash. The only thing we disagree with you guys about is don't give it attention. Just don't. And you'll find out why. Let's continue.
It's not worth it. All right, hit play.
Pronounced Rings, in the land of Snortor, in the fires of Mount
She's a hot chick,
the
though.
Dark Lord Amazon forged in secret a master range to control all others and
Why is everybody dirty in this show?
Because it's before the Renaissance. It's the Middle Ages.
Do they not,
Everyone's covered in shit.
Do they not understand that people back then, even peasants, were actually very cleanly? Like, hobbits themselves are based upon the Englishmen of, I think, Yorkshire, Northumberland?
Just be glad they're not taking the peasant syndicalism from Monty Python, too.
Monty Python was a comedy. It was a parody. It's not how things actually were in the medieval ages. Stop it. Stop this insanity.
Into this rags he poured all his comment and cruelty, his Menshevik malice, and his will to wokeify all life. One ring to make tools of them all.
This was a great intro, by the way.
It is a great intro. By the way, for people who don't know who the Mensheviks are, first off, Bolshevik is Russian for majority.
Mm-hmm.
Menshevik is Russian for minority. Within the first Soviet, basically the Socialist Congress of the post-Tsarist Russia, there was a faction who formed themselves into the Bolsheviks. They claimed that term because they wanted to make themselves the majority of people. They weren't the majority of people, but they still claimed the title anyway. For some reason, their political opponents, who were also communists, but of slightly less insane extremes, called themselves the Mensheviks, or the minority, I guess, because they wanted victim points. I don't know. Point is, they lost. Especially when you call yourselves the minority. What do you think was going to happen?
Pickaxe to the back of the head, that's what happened. There's nothing a leftist hates as much as another leftist.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, hit play.
since Sony plundered Michael Jackson's corpse for his music catalog before the autopsy was even concluded, have I seen a more profligate looting of a dead man's legacy than what Amazon have now done to J.R.R. Tolkien. Any distant fleeting hope, any far-flung lingering glimmer of optimism that may have been clinging by its fucking fingertips to the back of our brains was dashed for most. I really don't know what else to say about this footage, so you
hang on a sec.
What's it?
That was me. I was the one pausing. Apparently the chat's the audio is echoing. Is it just for you, Cal, or is everyone else echoing too?
I kind of think I know why. It's because I have the actual video audio on my end set to my speakers. That's what I was asking about before. I can set it to my headphone and see what happens.
All right, set it to that. We'll see if it does any better.
Also, again, where does this black elf come from? Is it ever explained? No.
Nope.
He just exists. He's you want to know what he is, ladies and gentlemen? He is the token black character. That stupid trope from the 80s where they stuck those guys in there just for the diversity points. Yes, they existed back then. Now, mind you, most of the time they were played by very talented dudes, so they were able to actually make it good. But sadly, this schmo over here is just going to be relegated to being fancy back art.
Yeah, pretty much. From what I hear about the first episode, that's all he and the Dwarf Queen are. Mostly about Galadriel.
Alright, let's continue. Okay, quick question. Is there any echoing now?
I don't hear any echoing myself, so...
Also, by the way, I need to pause it one more time. This whole intro thing of characters going through and what have you...
They had how many billions of dollars, and this is all they could afford?
It's worse than that. You want to know what it was taken from?
What?
Angel of Death. The CG short series, mini-series about the Blood Angels on Warhammer Plus. I actually started watching that thing on, let's say, less than savory websites. It's actually pretty good. Maybe not quite as good as Hell's Reach, but good. Regardless, it has an intro very similar to this. And that thing was out months before this thing came out, and this sort of animation work, well, this is done very late in post-production. Yeah, it's basically one of the very last things that gets worked on. So, yeah, GW, Amazon is stealing your stuff.
So,
maybe you should go get your lawyers on them.
So, maybe if they're busy suing them, they won't sue us.
Maybe. How am I here? That's just
there is a long intro,
isn't it? The script.
Like sands through the Palantir, so are the rings of our lives. I'm not saying this show is a glorified laundering operation, but Amazon's new spokesman is fucking Snuggles, which is germane to the series at large, really, as you'd have to be rolling on Tide Pods to pinch this shit out. Look, I think we can all acknowledge it at this point. We were deeply and abidingly fortunate with what Fran Walsh, Peter Jackson, and Philippa Boyens did with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Oh, there were plenty of nits to pick for a fact. I've always felt Shelob should have been at the end of the second film and ended in a Frodo death cliffhanger, for example. And don't even get me started on the scouring of the Shire. But folks,
pausing it. That was me. Oh my god, I hate the Shelob death. Like, even when you're right, Razor, you gotta be wrong. You want to know why it didn't end on Shelob like the books? It's because it still has to be its own self-contained movie, and it still has to retain the 3-act structure. If you leave on a cheap cliffhanger like that, you leave very little meat for the third movie.
Let me put it this way. The second Hobbit movie ended exactly like that, and nobody liked it.
Nope.
Nobody. I had a friend of mine, this is in high school, named Martin, and we watched the movie in class. I think it was actually in our algebra class, now that I think about it. teacher, Mr. Rojas, he was very into pop culture like that. He stood up and he's like, "Oh, are you freaking kidding me?
Yep.
Why would you end it like that?
Exactly. And as for the
Now we
scout,
gotta wait a year for this stuff."
yep. And as for the scouring of the Shire, there is no way. First off, I don't even like the scouring of the Shire in the books. The the Return of the King is like 10 chapters of actual plot and then 50 chapters of endings. And the Scouring of the Shire is at least 10 of those chapters. And my God, it's completely unnecessary. I'm not saying that Tolkien's an idiot, but I am saying that it's. You already had their story arc. You could have just. In 3 pages, you could have explained how they came home. There was raiders pillaging the Shire, and they banded everyone together because they're heroes now, and they learned from their experiences. Whole thing would have been done in 10 minutes. You didn't have to degrade Saruman even more. What the extended cuts did with Saruman, having him die in the beginning of Return of the King, I believe is a lot better.
Yeah, in many ways, it's pretty similar to the amount of fake out endings that Return of the King had. I don't mind the endings. It was a good way to wrap up everybody's story that way, but yeah, it was one of those things that just it kept going.
And another thing, the 3-act structure. That's why Saruman had to die in the beginning, because like the movie in the extended cut is already about an hour of endings. Oh,
Plus,
don't shame Cooper. Shame Swordsman. Shame Swordsman. He likes Todd Howard. And
well, the thing is, I don't disagree that the Scouring of the Shire is good as a self-contained thing. In fact, if I had been Tolkien, I would have just made that its own separate short story. But the thing is, it's good in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a good way to end the Return of the King, especially after you go through all that other crap to get this point. But there's one thing I don't like about the Scouring. It makes Treebeard kind of an idiot.
Yep.
You see, as I recall, Treebeard and his guys were basically put on the job of guarding Isengard and making sure that Saruman couldn't leave. Well,
he left.
Treebeard kind of left. Saruman just mosey on out of there. This man destroyed all of his trees. Do you honestly think that Treebeard is just going to walk away and let this guy just mosey on over and do the same to somebody else? No.
He'd probably go all Doom Guy on him, thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was no way that confrontation with Gandalf and company with Saruman was not going to end any other way. Either Saruman was going to come down from that tower or he was going to die.
And he died.
Yes, he did. Okay,
and
let's continue.
The last thing on the Scouring of the Shire. You can't have it in a movie and have it still be PG or PG-13 what the movies were rated. The swarthy men ate the hobbits. They're cannibals. You can't have that in a Hollywood movie. Continue.
Yeah.
Spoiled. At least it was essentially the same story, featuring essentially the same characters, serving a function more or less in service to the same theme. I mean, sure, having Sam the Gardener suddenly offer soaring oratory about the travails of recent global tragedies was so sky-shatteringly unsubtle, it may as well have ended with him shouting, "Remember 9/11,
Pause
Mr.
it. The speech is in the book. Seriously, Razor. Even when I say you're right, I don't actually hate Razor. It's like some people in our Discord think I hate Razorfist. I don't hate him. I actually admire him. I just think he can be a complete hipster sometimes. And I have no problem saying that.
It's like I said before about Sargon and Arch. When they don't do their research and do it off the cuff, they fail. They're kind of like Ben Shapiro in that way. Ben Shapiro is really good in arguments when he's prepared, when he's well researched. But if you go off the beaten track and start talking about something he doesn't really know about, he loses his way worse than the Hobbits do in the second movie.
And whatever you do, don't get him started on the Civil War. He thinks Arizona's the South.
He thinks that Lincoln was a dictator. Razor, do you not understand that the Union was at war at the time and that everything Lincoln did Let me put it this way. Suspending habeas corpus, suspending free speech, imprisoning those people in the newspaper and telegrams who support the South. James Madison, the guy you admire, did every single one of those things during the War of 1812 because
Yep.
the war was not entirely popular. There
Yep.
were plenty of New Englanders who felt that going to War of England was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
These are common things you do in war because you cannot afford to have dissension. You want to know what happened when we had dissension? Vietnam. And we lost because of it.
Yep. All right, that's enough picking on Razor. We're gonna be picking on Arch plenty. Let's finish up.
Frodo, but that's about as political as the proceedings ever became. Hell, even the flawed but fun Hobbit looks like Gone with the Goddamn Wind next to Amazon's streaming service Sermon. I never hated those movies, to be sure. To me, The Hobbit is like copping a feel on an Asian chick. Padded, but still fun.
I'll resist
But when
the joke.
Amazon's involved, I mean, isn't allowing a fantasy saga that thematically speaking is essentially anti-industrial revolution?
I'll make this quick. I think the first Hobbit is great. It's an excellent movie, and it's probably on par with The Fellowship of the Rings.
Yep.
Second one is good, but it has too much stuff in it. The third one
Should not have
actually
existed.
has... Well, the third one just doesn't really have a lot to cover, so it makes up a bunch of crap.
Should have only been two
Again-
movies. Should have been one movie, if you ask me.
Well, that was the thing. Peter Jackson's original plan was it was going to just be 2 movies, but no, Warner Brothers dug their feet in and said, we want it to be 3 movies. We want you to make us a lot of money. Well, look how well that turned out for you.
Everything people say about the Disney prequels is actually true of the Lord of the Rings prequels.
To be adapted by Amazon, who are just this side of a Captain Planet villain, a bit like letting the chair of the NRA deliver the JFK eulogy. Now, this news has been ubiquitous among the YouTube commentariat, and you may have noticed I've been conspicuously silent on the subject thus far, at least outside of podcast appearances and the like. And the reason why is spectacularly simple. As I have said so very, very often, the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. Hatred and the views incumbent upon it will not vanquish the Dark Lord Bezos back to the coastal quagmire from whence he emerged. Only the...
This is the very take that triggered 1,000 grifters. When he said that hate watching isn't going to slay the Dark Lord Bezos, that's when Arch got triggered. That's when Rags got triggered. That's when Moeller got triggered.
Yeah, let's consider this for a second. Do you remember He-Man? The new one? The one where they killed off He-Man in a spectacularly stupid way and made the whole thing about She-Ra?
To be honest,
You hear anything about it? Wanna know why? Because nobody cared after the shock value of those first few episodes. After that, everybody just ignored it. Its audience population basically dried up to almost nothing. And so, nothing is covered on it. Nobody talks about it. Why? Because indifference is the killer of any and all stories. When people stop caring about you, you disappear. When you are hated, they'll always talk about you. You'll never go away. You'll live in infamy. It's why, well, all those famous serial killers are still talked about today. They're hated, but that hatred still makes sure that they are remembered.
it's why the Star Wars sequels are never going to go away, because people won't shut up about them already. Look, I hate them too, but come on, guys. It's been how many years? Did they really affect your lives that deeply? It's not like 9/11. Come on.
Well, then again, these are the same people who felt that George Lucas had, quote-unquote, raped their childhood with the prequels, and they will still complain about them to this day.
Yep.
Moving right along.
crushing, thunderous silence of absolute abject indifference can accomplish that. And this is a rare case where the mainstream media reviewers may actually be leading the charge. You see, as of yesterday, the review embargo of Rings of Power has lifted, and the reviews are uglier than apartheid. Variety tempered a semi-positive appraisal with repeated references to stilted acting and a plot that's drier than a feminist around a male feminist. The Daily Mail...
See, not even the actual grifters like it. Why is Arch giving them ammunition to stay alive when even friggin' Vice and Viz and Daily Mail don't even like it?
Oh, unfortunately, it's because... You know what, I'll save the story for when we talk about Arch later, but let's just say it put him on the map.
Yep.
As, quote, mesmerizing awfulness. Even among the tempered positivity of mainstream publications, one of the lone truly glowing appraisals of the Wangs of Power should be expected to emanate from the Washington Post, the personal pinko rag of Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. But, well... let's sample a smidgen of that review, shall we? With particular attention to choice cuts like, its defining influence isn't Game of Thrones' epic scale, but Marvel's neuteredness, and, quote, if the production design weren't so spectacular, the Rings of Power wouldn't be at all out of place on Disney+. Ouch! Not long ago, Peter Jackson told a tale about being approached to direct, produce, or be otherwise involved in this TV series, only when he asked for the script, they not only failed to scribble one up for him, they suddenly lost his number, meaning someone at Amazon was well apprised of Peter Jackson's public battles with Warner Brothers and being outspoken about production difficulties on The Hobbit, and didn't want him letting anyone know the script is written in fucking crayon. Though at this...
Let me elaborate a little bit on the Peter Jackson thing when it came to The Hobbit. Okay. Jackson did not want to direct The Hobbit. He was done after Lord of the Rings, which I don't blame him. That was a monumental project.
How are you going to top it?
Warner Brothers approached Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, the guy who was responsible for things like The Labyrinth, Pacific Rim, and the Hellboy movies. All of them pretty good movies altogether. So they brought him on, and things broke down really quickly between him and Warner Brothers. So he left in the middle of post-production. Warner Brothers pleaded with Peter Jackson to come back. So Peter Jackson does. He has this grand plan of how he wants to approach it, which is 2 movies. His idea is, let's just scrap the production of the Guillermo movies, and let's just start fresh. Warner Brothers didn't want to do this. You want to know how much time Jackson got in pre-production for the Lord of the Rings movies? 18 months. You want to know how much he got for the Hobbit movies? 3 months. 3 months, and he had to salvage together the broken pieces of another man's directorial piece. That's why the Hobbit movies turned out the way that they did. That's why they don't really seem like even visually in continuity with the Lord of the Rings movies, let alone Peter Jackson's own visual style. It's because it's not. It's Guillermo's style, being directed by a man who doesn't direct in that style. Yep. It's actually kind of amazing that these movies turned out as well as they did, considering all that.
It's a shame, too. A nice Hobbit movie would have been a really nice prequel. I say movie singular. Continue.
Though at this point, it was an act of outright charity, because now Peter Jackson can stand at a safe distance, watch the mushroom cloud from afar, and say, fuck, it's awesome not being at the center of that, and what a tack nuke.
Isn't it nice that if I get this stream taken down for profanity, it isn't for my own? Like,
it's for razors.
He is working blue. That's what I'll say. Continue.
Galadriel warrior princess. I can only assume they're saving transsexual ring wraiths for the 2nd season.
What are they? They were once men. Huh?
And anyone who's followed this series even the slightest bit knows the behind-the-scenes production had almost as many politics as the script, firing 3 separate producers and 2 executives in charge of production, and even shit-canning the person who originally inked the production deal with the fucking Tolkien estate, before ultimately pawning it all off on refugees from J.J. Abrams' own Bad Robot, who at this point is basically the Doc Kevorkian in a beloved fucking franchises.
He's not wrong.
Tolkien fans,
Nope.
just slide the IV in the arm of this series and watch it drift off into the sweet release of death.
Oh, hold on. Back up a second. Back up. Okay. We got 2 dwarves here. Well, we're not going to talk about the race thing because we already did. But here's 2 dwarves having a pleasant dinner with an elf to the point that they are laughing. Do you not understand that elves and dwarves do not like each other? They hate each other?
It's even a plot point later with the black elf.
Yeah, so what is going on? It should just prove the point. They don't understand this universe.
Nope.
Release of death. The burning sensation means it's working. For my money, the most contemptible thing about what Amazon is doing to the storied legacy of this seminal fantasy franchise is not the wokeness or the agenda. It ain't the 11-5 different ways they consciously fucked the lore in the ass, then blame the audience for noticing. It's that they did all of this having specifically waited until Christopher Tolkien was planted in the ground to do so, knowing he would have vocally disowned the series if he still drew breath, and knowing further that his contemptible fucking progeny and the modern heirs of the Tolkien legacy would sell their great-grandfather's name for $15 in Molocop cash. Do not hate watch. Do not signal boost. Let this conscious fucking affront die and decay in obscurity.
But Razor, if we do that, how's Arch gonna make any money?
And Arch, EFAB, and the rest of those guys who built themselves off of this stuff. Arch just got started.
Quartering, Tim Pool, Ethan Van Sciver, John Delarose. I remember we got into a little bit with John Delarose because he said Multiverse of Madness was satanic propaganda.
Oh, God, I remember that.
He's an idiot.
And then ignored for all eternity. The J.R.R. Tolkien saga is a prime and operative example of what I've been saying for a decade or more. If you're a fan of something, particularly anything not yet awash in cultural Marxism, create that fan community yourself. Websites, YouTube channels, Discords, define the fuck out of that community, because if you don't, someone else sure as shit will. I'm Razorfist. God fucking speed.
All right. A fairly good video. I liked it.
Yeah.
There's very few times I agree with Razor on media stuff. This is one of them.
So I suppose we're off to Arch's insanity.
Yep, because Arch was almost immediately triggered. The good thing is his comment section, his viewers, they're not having any of it. The bad news is he made a stream immediately after where he goes basically gung-ho against his own viewers for 2 hours. We're not going to show that. It would take too long. Pause it. It would take way too long to cover his take, or EFAP's take, but before this, I made notes of what their takes were. We'll go over those. Since we're 45 minutes into a 2-hour stream.
Right. This is gonna be fun.
Yep. Let's do this.
I've been seeing the idea that you shouldn't hate watch the rings of power proliferating both before and obviously now.
Where did you see it, Arch? Because he never credits Razorfist for this. Where did you see it? Tell us, Arch. Where is this take coming from? Are you gonna credit the source, or are you too much of a chicken because you know Razor would eat you alive?
Oh, I think Razor would actually take delight in doing that because he hates 40k and Warhammer with a burning passion. So, taking down one of the leading lore experts, I'm going to say that with air quotes here because, let's just say Arch values his opinion a lot more than the actual lore.
Lorgar did absolutely nothing wrong.
Oh, he would love to take a crack at this guy and, put him in the ground.
Oh, but Arch would never do it. He's a chicken.
No, he would not.
After the initial 2-episode release of Amazon's so far underwhelming and underperforming TV series, and I, for one, disagree. In fact, not only do I disagree, I think it's a really bad idea. Worse yet, I think it is an active detriment to our, if you will excuse the lofty verbiage, cause. We have power. We have influence, and most
okay.
of all,
where's our power?
Pause it. The rings of
Where's our power? Where's our influence? Where have you seen it lately? All you've been doing is bitching about things like Star Wars and Warhammer, and where's our influence? Where is it coming from? Well,
Arch, I am going to just say this. For the most part, studios do not care about us. They are so insulated in their own little cultural bubble that they just don't care. They don't care that you are spouting about these things. Now, you might get it into your head that they do care about this because of your drama of Games Workshop. Now, first off, I think Games Workshop are a bunch of scumbags.
Mm-hmm.
But Games Workshop, in the grand scheme of companies, let alone toy companies, let's call it that, toy companies, they're small fish. They're small fry. They are so small that they are insecure about it, so someone as vocal as you would trigger them. But somebody big like Amazon or Disney or what have you, they're not going to care. And there's a video that I will show you guys later that will explain exactly why they don't care. Mm-hmm. Why it actually benefits them that you are angry at them and you don't stop talking about this crap.
She-Hulk, New Hulk, everything in MCU seems to me clear that they don't really care about us. Well, I'm not going to sing the whole song.
Yeah. And that's the thing about Arch. And I will make this quick, because I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Well, the thing that put Arch onto the map can be best described by his name, Arch. Anyone who originally subscribed to him years ago, which I did, knows that his original name was Arch Warhammer. Games Workshop, several years ago, got it into their head to start going after anybody and everything that even remotely, quote-unquote, infringed on their copyright. In fact, there's a good animated video about this somewhere on YouTube, where basically Games Workshop decides to stick their lawyers on some kid in Nebraska who entered in unofficial models to one of their stores.
Mm-hmm.
It was a joke, of course, but I think it was probably based on the real thing.
I think it was based on the Napster controversy in which Lars Ulrich and Metallica sued a 10-year-old kid for pirating their songs.
Probably. Arch was caught in the middle of this because Games Workshop, just like with the term Space Marine, decided to try and copyright the term Warhammer. Yes, Warhammer. The actual Warhammer physical object from the medieval ages. And because of this, YouTube promptly rolled over, and they went after Arch, threatening to sue him if he did not change his name. Like I said, Games Workshop are so petty because they are small fry. They will always be small fry because they are a very niche community.
Wait. So the guy who spends 10 minutes and then 2 hours of internet tough guy talk about how he wants to push people over the edge, his claim to fame is that he rolled over.
Yes. He changed his name from Arch Warhammer to just Arch.
He rolled over and caved in. That's his big claim to fame, despite all of his tough guy talk in this video.
Yes.
I think he's compensating for something.
Well, it's why a lot of people in the 40K community, even us who absolutely hate Games Workshop, tend to think Arch is kind of pathetic.
Yep.
Because ever since this point, because it made him known to a lot of people, the big YouTuber who's taken down by the company, by the big bad company, well, it got a lot of people to flock to his side, especially when I think his channels got taken down for a little bit by bots.
And in the end, all he is a big pussy.
Unfortunately, yes. And unfortunately, he has let this thing inflate his ego, and it's even affected his usual lore videos.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who fundamentally believes that the imperial truth, the atheistic code that says that religion is bad, is somehow effective against the powers of chaos, when it in fact was not able to even remotely prevent the great Horus heresy, the civil war between the Imperium, that was started because the Emperor hated religion. And fast forward, the only thing that has prevented the Imperium from falling into chaos and destruction has been the Imperial Creed, a religion based around the hipster Emperor. It was more successful than anything the Emperor created. In fact, the Emperor's empire died, and it was the empire of the Primarchs that followed that ensured humanity stayed alive.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Arch, for perhaps personal reasons, doesn't like that view, and thinks that the Imperial truth is actually great,
Ring,
and
ring,
that it was
ring,
working,
ring,
and
ring,
that's
ring,
why...
ring, banana phone.
Yeah. Either way, Arch, when you're off the cuff, you're an idiot.
I say when he's on the cuff, he's also an idiot.
Well, when he's on the cuff, he at least tends to look like he knows what he's talking about.
All right, we really don't want to do this any more than you guys do, but let's keep going. Let's listen to a
Power
moron.
is not a strong entity. It's not a well-established franchise. It didn't come out to love and bluster out the gate. It was wobbly at the best of times, and the release has not strengthened it. For us then to stand by and refuse to use the power we do have, the influence we do have...
What influence is that?
It's not merely a recipe for defeat, it is the definition of the term. See, apathy is watching your enemy teetering on the brink of the abyss and not reaching out a helping hand.
Arch, I'm pretty sure Sun Tzu once said that the greatest mistake you can make is preventing your enemy from making a mistake. Let the enemy teeter. Let them fall into the abyss of apathy. Let this thing completely fail with a yawn and not a gasp.
What he's about to say, because I watched this video before, is that what we should be doing is pushing them off. No, Arch. And in fact, they're not even teetering on the edge. They're drowning in a sea of their own irrelevance. What you're doing, Arch, is throwing them life preservers in the hopes that you hit them in the head and knock them out.
Indeed. Let's continue.
Hatred is pushing the motherfucker over. And I, for one, think that is
If we get taken down for language, I'm blaming
Now,
Arch.
of course, I will elaborate. Now, let's begin here with some hard-to-swallow pills, shall we? First and foremost, you and I and the fan audience who gives shit about the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, we are a vanishingly small percentage of Amazon's target audience. Hell, we are a vanishingly small percentage of their already installed.
Okay, then why? Why should we care? Why should we leave negative downvotes anyway if we're not the target audience? If it's not for us, why should we even bother, Arch?
Because he gets views.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only reason.
Million Amazon Prime customers in America alone. Half of the US is already in their grasp. Us not watching it is less than a drop in the bucket. This is not a competition for whether you or I, the fans, don't watch. It is making the non-aligned people, the wider majority, the masses.
Oh, the appeal to the norm. Pause it. Because he went on this in his stream too. Oh, where it's not about our views. It's about appealing to the normies.
The normies don't care.
No, but the normies don't watch Lord of the Rings. My father actually had to ask who when the Hobbit movie first came out. He actually had to ask who the dragon was, and that's only because he was doing a crossword puzzle. Normies don't care.
Yeah, Arch, the only reason this show exists is because House of the Dragon exists. Because HBO was putting out a dragon-themed medieval fantasy show, and Amazon felt the need to compete with something. So they decided to tap into Lord of the Rings, which, okay, to be fair, that's a good idea. Lord of the Rings does have brand recognition. Not nearly as much as, unfortunately, Game of Thrones nowadays, largely because, well, let's be honest, Lord of the Rings isn't very expansive when it comes to its lore. But, yeah, it wasn't made with the intention of creating a good show, it was made to compete with another show. Anytime you get something like that, it tends to not end very well.
It's why the Chronicles of Narnia movies never took off. They were good movies in their own right, but in their essence, they were made to compete with The Lord of the Rings instead of waiting 5 years and releasing them later.
You want to know what people in the film industry call those kind of projects? Copycats.
Creative name there.
And you want to know what happens to copycats?
They die.
They're forgotten about.
Nobody talks about the Chronicles of Narnia movies, even though, well, the first two were really good, and the third one was kind of good, even though it wasn't Disney.
Mm-hmm. Moving right along.
Competition between us and Amazon for the PR victory to set the narrative. And furthermore, this is the important part, the narrative, the story, and the reputation of Amazon. Because here's the thing,
Pause it.
What reputation are you talking about?
Amazon's reputation is dirt, both on the left and the right. It's the one thing we agree on.
Let me tell you a little story. Amazon has recently been setting up in my state. This is because for the last several years, the governor has had the grand plan of trying to attract a lot of these companies to our state. Now, that's not a bad idea. New Mexico doesn't have much in the way of actual resources to offer ever since they shut down our copper mines, our silver mines, and our uranium mines. Yeah, literally, the only thing of value we have is under the ground, and these guys don't want to touch it. Regardless, they had the grand idea of, well, companies like to film here. So why don't we get places like Netflix and Amazon to come over? And Netflix is still kind of on the table, but Amazon is building a shop here. And they do have multiple delivery spots around here. I've had no less than 15 people from my store leave and decide to go work at Amazon. They all left within about 3 months because of how terrible the working conditions were.
Mm-hmm. Not only the poor working conditions, but the poor customer service, the fact they give all their money to leftist causes, the fact that their CEO may or may not be a glow-in-the-dark pedophile. And that's just the stuff we hate about them. The leftists hate them, mainly because they're successful capitalists, but still.
Either way, there is no reputation to talk about here. Amazon's reputation is complete and utter garbage. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need any help in that regard.
It's even worse off than Disney is now. All right, let's keep doing this.
If we manage to make sure that Lord of the Rings of Power, did not get a single view, not one, through the entire existence of his runtime, if we manage to make Amazon Studios shut their doors tomorrow with the complete, absolute
How do we do
loss
that?
of all assets, Amazon would shrug and move on as if nothing
Really?
happened.
They would?
Arch,
These are
you do
people who are
realize
spending billions of dollars on their movie productions, and this is the last one they released because none of the other ones are making any money. They're going with an actual beloved franchise now because they think it'll make money, but they had the bad idea to put bad faith actors in charge of the project.
Arch,
And
you
we
clearly-
know they were bad faith actors when they... First off, when they kicked Peter Jackson off the project, and second, when they kicked off all the experts. We knew about this going in, and that's why we need to not pay attention. We can't give them reason to keep making movies, either out of spite or out of movies, a TV series, whatever. Either because they're just gonna do it to spite us. If Amazon doesn't care if the feedback is positive or negative, they care if there's eyes on the product.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think Arch quite understands how viewership with TVs works.
Oh, you did not watch his 2-hour stream. He not only doesn't understand how streaming works, he doesn't understand how television works. He doesn't understand the Nielsen ratings.
Yeah, the thing is, Arch, every episode, the pilot episodes are always going to have fairly high viewerships because people are cluing in. But the thing you have to take into consideration is how long they keep watching it. These are things that are tracked and monitored. And if people are apathetic about a show, guess what? The viewership will literally fall into the floor and flatline. This is the death of a lot of TV shows. That's why pilots exist. Pilots are filmed, pilots are shown, and if they're successful and they maintain that success over the course of at least 2 weeks, then the show is continued.
And you know what maintains that success? Word of mouth. One way or the other. People will either watch it because they heard about it or they heard bad things about it and they want to see it for themselves how bad it is. That's why they say there's no such thing as bad publicity. Giving them publicity at all is only going to help them.
You want to know what the people at my store in town talk about? House of the Dragon, because it's apparently actually a decent show. For now, at least. I'm not going to tune into it until at least the end of the season where I see where it's going. You want to know what they're not talking about, though? The Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
The Rings of Power, the most expensive television show in human history. $5 billion is less than a week's revenue for Amazon, who last year earned 420 plus B for billion dollars.
Yeah, we know how billion
Arch,
works, you Euro.
Arch, do you not understand how much of that money then has to go back into paying out the infrastructure, the marketing, the promotion for the company?
He's never run his own company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's why anytime someone measures the success of a company based on of how many billions they have, don't take into consideration the international standard of that company.
No company, no one person has that much liquid capital on them at any one time. Most of it's tied up in the company itself, if not invested into other projects.
Mm-hmm.
The old saying, hit them where it hurts in the pocketbook, simply does not apply to companies like Amazon. They are too big, too diversified, and have too much income for us to have any
George W. Arts right here.
In this way. Now, don't get me wrong, boycotts can work against the correct targets and in the correct way. For example,
it's not a boycott. Boycotts are organized. This is just us making the decision how to spend our own time and our own money. You moron.
The recent event.
Sorry, you're saying?
No, I wasn't saying. Keep going.
Of Games Workshop and Warhammer 40k. GW are trying to be bought up by a much larger company, the Hasbros or the Disneys of the world, the big fish. And to do so, it is attempting to show that it can monetize its IP, that it is more than merely a model manufacturing company. It can have animations, games, TV shows, all kinds of stuff with Warhammer Plus. In that precarious position, us, the actual fans, who are still the core of the user base, simply refusing to engage with Warhammer Plus is a mighty blow. But for Amazon...
So
some
what you're
studios
saying
just
is it's
can't
okay
get-
when you do it.
Yeah. Thing is, Arch, I'm not so sure about the whole buy them up sort of thing.
Though
considering
it
the
would be
fact that
cool if
you-
Hasbro did buy them up, because then we can get canon Transformers versus Warhammer.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah,
But
that would
here's
be the best
reason-
thing.
Here's the reason why I doubt Arch's word on this, because if you guys, like me, who subscribe to this guy, remember, this guy outlined what Warhammer was going to try and do. They were going to distance themselves away from the tabletop franchise. They were going to stop making models. They were going to transition into making nothing but action figures. They were going to completely sanitize the lore in favor of making it a lot more kid-friendly, and that they would use their copyright infringement system to ensure that nobody would be able to compete, quote-unquote compete, with them when it came to their animation circles.
Hey, they don't need to sanitize anything. Those Todd McFarlane action figures look so friggin' dope. I think I showed...
They do.
It wasn't a Todd McFarlane one, but I think I showed you an action figure of a Krieg's Death Corps of Krieg, and it looks so friggin' awesome.
It does look freaking awesome. Now, here's the thing. Arch was correct in only one regard. One. That was the animation thing. That was them banning fan films. But did they stop or even slow down their miniature production? No. In fact, they even opened up another miniature sub...
They got the squats back.
Sub-game. Well, we got the squats back. We have Kill Team, and apparently Kill Team is making them a ridiculous amount of money. So much so that seems to be where a lot of their quality attention has gone to. They're not shutting down their miniature production. If anything, they're just diversifying it.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the complete and utter sanitization of the lore is not happening.
No, because immediately after Arch said that they were gonna do that, someone, I don't know who, but some media person asked, "Oh, does this mean they're gonna be female Space Marines now?" And they said the
No.
exact opposite of what someone woke and looking to be bought out would say. No, the lore says it's males only. There's good reasons why it's male only. Please shut up and stop asking us this question.
Yeah. If anything, what we're dealing with is just bad writing. That's pretty typical of Games Workshop. Games Workshop has always had bad writing.
And like
when I
I
say always, I mean always.
Like I said in my
Since the days of Rogue
videos.
Trader.
Like I said in my videos. Just because it's badly written doesn't mean it's woke.
Exactly. But the Arch does not like this. Arch wants this to be a thing because, again, this is the thing that put him on the map to begin with. Alright, moving right along.
Side project. It is a subset of Amazon. And again, this is the important part. For whilst the old saying, hide them where it hurts in the pocketbook no longer applies, well, there are good versions of that too. For example, the old saying, there is no such thing as bad PR, also no longer applies.
No, it applies.
In today's environment, a reputation is worth a lot more than money. Money is finite. It's whatever you got there in the bank at the moment. Reputation, that is a license to print money, particularly in big business like Amazon.
Pause it.
Reputation.
Arch, if that was true, then Disney would have gone under by now. Warner Brothers would have gone under by now.
Amazon would be
Paramount
already
would have gone
gone.
under.
Amazon's reputation is dirt. There's no way people can hate it more than they hate it right now.
Yeah.
Is investors, it is support, it is grants, it is a million pocketbooks all across the world belonging to millionaires and billionaires fling themselves open to sponsor your next project because you have shown the ability to do so. And Rings of Power, that is their attempt to show that they can. If Rings of Power succeeds, Amazon Studios is set for life.
You want to know who else is set for life?
What?
Amazon won't be set for life because even if this, just to get a moderate success off of this, they'd still have lost money because they invested $5 billion in this and mostly flushed it down the toilet. But you know who will be set for life? Arch Warhammer. He'll be set for life because he'll continue to make videos on this. After his stream that he had after this, where he attacked his own chat, his own fan base, and he immediately, his very next video was about Amazon, and he was declaring victory. It was like playing chess with a pigeon with this guy. He struts around, knocks pieces over, craps on the board, and then flies back to his flock declaring victory.
Also, he makes this claim that Rings of Power would set up Amazon for life like this is their first attempt at television.
It isn't.
You want to know what you want to know what set Amazon for life? The Boys. The Boys, Invincible, and the countless dozens of other shows that they have made. Many of them are actually fairly good, largely because the creator... Okay, there's a funny rule about Amazon. If the creator is alive, it will be good. If they're not, it will be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, though, The Boys is what made Amazon's television as good as it was, at least in terms of the reputation.
And even then,
the monetary gain.
In its later seasons, it's starting to lose because what The Boys actually is, and a cynical, apathetic piece, it's starting to lose audience interest.
Mm-hmm.
Invincible at least has the relationship with Omni-Man and the main protagonist.
And believe me, if you guys have read the Invincible comics, oh, you know things are going to get good in the later seasons.
Because the only thing Invincible has is the father-son relationship at this point. They ruined the fucking girlfriend.
Well, yeah, but out of all the things they could have ruined, that was pretty insignificant considering that Amber doesn't remain in the story for very much longer.
Yeah.
It basically felt like a sacrificial lamb up to the woke gods just so that the rest of this could stay clean.
It's completely pointless, too. We might as well finish this video. Come on.
For the very least, the next half century. But if it fails, not only will that probably shatter the studio, it will do irreparable damage to Amazon itself.
Pause it. He can't go 5 seconds without saying something wrong. It's not gonna irreparably damage because the videos, they're a side grift, they're a side hustle for Amazon. But more than that, even if this thing's successful, they're probably gonna shutter the studios because of how much money they spent on this. There's no way they can make that money back, even if it's as successful as it'd have to be as successful as House of Dragon, and then some. Just to make the money back.
You want to know another show that predates Game of Thrones and actually sort of set the table for it, that more or less went down this route and was actually good? Rome. HBO's Rome.
Oh, I love that.
That series was so expensive that even though it was beloved, even though it was, thrown out to the wazoo when it came to viewership, it wasn't enough to save the show.
Nope.
They were going to have that thing go for 5 seasons, but the cost of just season 1 alone ensured it was only going to go 1 more season, and that was after some really heavy negotiating.
And it's sad too because it was a really good series, but because it wasn't as successful as The Sopranos, but it wasn't as cheap as The Sopranos. I gotta rewatch The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
The reputation, that is the important focal point here. Because here's the thing. All of this talk about how massive Amazon is, how powerful it is, how rich it is, this is not meant to demoralize you. It is not meant to demotivate you. It is not to say that this is a battle we cannot win because we can. I am simply saying if you are hunting an elephant, bring a gun, not a blindfold.
Pause it.
And in this case, the gun...
We are not bringing a blindfold, you idiot. This is not an elephant. This is a rabbit caught in a bear trap. And what you're doing is letting it out of the trap. You want it to die, you let it die. It's already dying. You can hit play.
is the reputation. Now, the Rings of Power is already under attack from all sides. It's already received, at best, wishy-washy praise, even from the bought and paid for mainstream press. It is already teetering on the brink. All we need do is reach out a hand and push. And we cannot do so by ignoring it, because again, we are simply too small of a percentage.
Yes,
the way
we can.
Amazon
Pause it.
is through this.
Pause it.
Is through.
We can stop it from not paying attention. You want to know why? Because they get money from our views. They make their money off ads and subscriptions. If we don't subscribe to Amazon's TV service, if we don't give them the commercials, if we don't give them any of that, they don't make their money back. You have to watch the show to review it. That's the rule on IMDb. That's the rule on Rotten Tomatoes. And they don't care if you give it a bad review. Because one, they just are going to delete the bad reviews. But two, they don't care. They made their money. You gave them ad bucks.
And I will show you guys a scene from a certain little gem of the show called Barry that explains perfectly why they do these things. Why they will go to such extremes. I'm just going to say it. Go to such extremes to piss people off. There is no news that sells like bad news. Moving right along.
The rating score is through the reviews. It is through Rotten Tomatoes. It is through IMDb. It is through Amazon Prime's own review system. Because this is how we speak to the wider audience. As I've said previously, and everyone has mentioned but seems to have failed to grasp themselves, Amazon is not making this show for the fans of The Lord of the Rings. They are making it for the wider audience, for the 150 casual users already installed to Amazon Prime. And so they are the ones we need to convince as well. And the best way to do that is through leaving a negative review. I've already done my
Pause it.
and I have left an informed.
Do people read the negative reviews, though? Do they? A lot of people who read reviews have their own preconceived thoughts about the work, and they just check whatever suits the... People like having their views regurgitated back at them. I think this is something Almighty Lolly has said in one of his videos. This is basically how Arch makes his living. He regurgitates people's views back at them. That's how people handle reviews. If you're already interested in something, you're only going to check the reviews of... Well, unless you're looking for flaws, you're only going to check the reviews of other people who like it because they're like-minded people. You're not going to check the negative reviews on something you already decided to pre-order. And a lot of the times, the bad reviews are made in bad faith. A lot of the times, the good reviews are made in bad faith. You can't trust the reviews these days.
Yeah, and truth be told, most normal people that are not glued to their screens are only going to watch something if someone else they know is telling them it's good. It takes word of mouth to convince them otherwise. Not some internet tough guy saying, hey, this is bad, you should not watch this. All you're doing is convincing your particular percentage of the audience who already agree with you not to go watch this thing.
But this is some that his chat and his stream he made, where he basically went into a war with the chat and even ignored people who made points that contradicted his own preconceived notions. Which, again, this is something everyone does. He never brings this up. He never addresses this actual point, the reality of how people work. Let's just finish this.
on my part, and I have left an informed review as well. I know what the problems with the show are.
So you're part of the problem. Great.
As well. Now, if you don't want to support Amazon, there are ample ways not to do so, but you should know what you are talking about when you review it, because if not, well, you are giving our opposition ammunition. Make no mistake. What I am suggesting...
You don't need to watch it to know what you're talking about. It was already in the news they fired 3 Tolkien experts. It was already in the news that they waited for Christopher Tolkien to die to write up the Steel. It was already known.
Yeah. I haven't even seen the show, and just going off of that little intro there they had for the show, I can already tell you what was wrong with it. The moment I'm not against having black characters or Asian characters or what have you in Lord of the Rings. I am fine with it. But the moment they posted that poster of a beardless black dwarf lady doing this incredibly smug pose, you knew where this was going.
I was more offended by her lack of a beard.
Well, it just tells you they don't care about the lore. And they're sticking this person in there purely for the sake of diversity points. It's a checklist. In fact, they kind of hit, 4 checklists with this thing? Woman in power, black lady, dwarf, black dwarf, overweight black dwarf. I'm pretty sure there's like 10 there I just mentioned.
Now that we hit them via the reviews, our opposites are already doing the opposite of that because they know this game far better than us. Yet we understand the theory, yet we refuse to play.
Arch, you do realize that probably the majority of those positive reviews are bots?
You realize that probably half of the negative reviews are also bots. It goes both ways.
Because here's the thing. You leave a negative troll review saying something that is blatantly false. Every one of those people can now point to your review and go, hey look, he didn't even watch it. He's just a troll. He is literally just a sheep hating on the thing because people tell him to hate it, and they will be right. It's not like this is a good show. You will
Is he calling his audience sheep? I think he's calling his audience sheep. I think he's aware of what he's doing.
Alright, we are running out of time here, so we need to keep going.
No, you don't even need to watch more than one episode, acquired through whatever alternative means you feel fit your purpose the best. But again, there are even traps. The Black Dwarven Princess, Disa, for example, the dwarves are the only good part about the show so far. So if you claim that that is the negative, well, again, you'll have wandered into the trap, won't you? This is our opportunity. This is our chance. And here's the thing: our numbers, we may be nothing compared to Amazon's 150 million installed users, but look, it is
may as well double speed it to the very end.
Only 23,000 reviews. Your voice, as tiny and incremental though it might be, even in this scale, is infinitely louder in 23,000 reviews than 150 million users. You choosing not to watch is not having any effect. You finding some way to make an informed review, for whatever means you find necessary again, and then leaving a negative review speaks far, far louder. The Rings of Power is weak. I see no reason to grant Amazon mercy or the clemency of our ignorance.
Pause it.
Arch, this is not mercy. This is a shrug.
Not only is it not mercy, this is tough talk coming from the guy who rolled over for Games Workshop. You talk the talk, but we know you don't walk the walk, Arch. So knock it off. We all know you're a stupid blonde himbo.
In this. Why should our enemy, who has given us his head on a silver platter, be told to take it back now? Now, of course, I'm sure there are going to be some disagreements about this, and hey, please do make your counter-argument in the comments down below. Maybe if there's some particularly good ones, we'll address them too, because
he didn't.
Interesting, but
he literally ignored his own, because he made a stream after this about it, and he was going to invite Short Fat Otaku of all people, the fat balding pedophile, but he never addressed his actual chat. He addressed some super chats, but he mostly gave wishy-washy answers. And I'll go over those once we're done with this. But oh my god, he's not interested in having an honest discussion with his chat, because his comment section, except for the most brown-nosiest fucking bootlickers, ate him alive for this. I'm surprised he didn't lose that many subscribers over this.
To be fair, those of us who do are still subscribed to him have long accepted that the man can and will, excuse my French here, talk out of his ass every now and then.
But when the chips are down, he rolls the fuck over.
Yes.
Right on this one. So again, please do leave me your counter comments, and we'll see. Until next time.
I think this is a good place to stop.
Yeah, let me.
Do we really need to go over his stream? Because
we don't have to watch the video itself, but I made notes. Like, first and foremost, 2 hours, good stream length. Second off, he never tests his streaming gear. Third off, the chat was immediately on him. Razorfist was right, appeared several times in the chat. I watched the replay and I watched the chat. It was more internet tough guy language. He ignored some of his super chats. He ignored a lot of his chats. And it was basically him saying what he said in this video, but giving really weak reasoning behind it. But I picked a few super chats and a few chats that he never answered, or some of them he gave poor answers to, and, well, let me read some of them. Excuse me. A little bit of indigestion.
Take your time.
Well, we'll read some of them off. Lucky Leo 25 asked him, I have 2 questions concerning hate watching, if it is effective or not. Did hate watching keep Batwoman alive for 3 seasons? Did EFAP unintentionally keep that dreadful show alive? And he basically flip-flopped on his answer, but I'll give you the answer right now. Yes, because of how Nielsen ratings work and because of how Morbid Curiosity works, they kept that show alive longer than it would have gotten off of. And he basically said, his excuse was, oh, they already bought like 5 or 6 seasons. No, they didn't, because they would have had Ruby Rose on a multi-season contract if they signed for multiple seasons. And very rarely do shows, even with part of larger franchises like the CW DC Universe, get signed on for multiple seasons in their first go. This is why Ruby Rose was let off, because she was only signed for a single season contract. They never renewed it because, well, she was acting like a bitch on the set. If she was signed for a multi-season contract, if this was signed up for a multi-season deal, then there would have been actual legal issues with getting rid of her, and she would have been on for more seasons. They weren't signed for multiple seasons, Arch. What kept it alive is because people hate watched it, and that gave them more viewers in the Nielsen ratings. The Nielsen ratings don't depend on if people like it or not. It depends on how many people watch on its premiere. It wasn't a long-term investment, and it's not how TV ratings work.
Yeah, well, considering the fact that the man's specialization was more or less talking about lore from a miniature series, yeah, he's not exactly going to be very schooled when it comes to figuring out how television works.
Well, let me find another trap from the chat. Dio55. It would be neat if you could get Razorfist on to discuss this side of the. He ignored all of the requests to have Razorfist on. I wonder why. Is it any mystery?
Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because Razor would eat this man alive. Like, the difference between Arch and Razor is that Razor is, for those who don't know the tidbits of his own history that he's let out, he is a political science major. He used to work for a newspaper. He used to work for radio, in addition to obviously being a band member, hence his whole rocker appeal. That's the reason why he has such colorful language. I don't mean in terms of his cursing, I mean in terms of his descriptors, in terms of his comparisons, his adjectives, and what have you.
He would talk circles around Arch.
Yeah, the man is very well informed when it comes to his own personal language, let alone his, honest to God, encyclopedic understanding of how a lot of Hollywood seems to work. So, yeah, he would absolutely destroy Arch, and he would take utmost pleasure out of it. In fact, I would not be surprised if the argument would devolve into him talking about 40K being a complete and utter ripoff of every popular science fiction and fantasy piece of work out there. And I freely admit it is. I still love it, but I can understand why Razor doesn't. And he would take an absolute pleasure in destroying Arch over this. And there would be
he would, but if
to stop him.
He would, but if there was an opportunity to swerve against Batman, The Witcher, or Abraham Lincoln, he'll take that swerve and swerve hard, leaving Arch completely open and confused.
Yeah, that's true. All right, do you have anything else on here?
No, it's a lot of his points, but it's all the same points. It's like, oh no, this is how economics work. We are winning, and Arch. Oh, Star Wars still made money with TLJ. After TLJ, the apathy didn't kill Star Wars. It did kill Star Wars. The Solo movie bombed. It was a box office failure, Arch.
Why do you think that they've gone to making TV shows instead of movies?
Exactly.
Obi-Wan was supposed to be a movie. Boba Fett was supposed to be a movie.
And they have to put it on Disney Plus because, well, there's no way they can put it in the movie theaters. The general audiences, the ones who aren't already subscribed to Disney Plus, they saw the sequel movies and they weren't impressed. It's why they haven't released another Star Wars movie since. It's all been made for streaming stuff.
Indeed. All right, I'm going to put up the Barry video. This is to explain to people why companies do this and why they want you to hate watch their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the excellent show. This is from the excellent show Barry, which is about a hitman trying to leave the life to become an actor.
I heard about this. Lolly covered it.
It's a great show. And the lady over here, the blondie, she's his girlfriend, who went on to make a successful TV show for about 5 seconds. And they've discovered the TV show has been taken off the website of the company that they were signed on for, so they need to find out why.
The entire title, Joplin, and still had no matches. It wasn't until I typed out SALLYREEDNEWSHOWJOPLI that it auto-completed the rest, and I found the show. So what do we need to do to get it back on the homepage?
We are canceling the show.
What?
Why? Well, the algorithm felt it wasn't hitting the right taste clusters.
Taste clusters? It's been 12 hours. Don't we need time to get word of mouth?
Oh, the algorithm takes word of mouth into account. But it considers other things too. For instance, if viewers see someone eating dessert within the first 2 minutes of the episode, they almost always finish the entire season.
Always.
Oh, and it's not just dessert. The same goes for Central Park, Kittens, Dev Patel.
We have a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
98. And people were crying at the screening.
I know. And I was one of them. But I guess I was wrong.
Why do you even bother? Watching cuts, giving us notes.
Careful.
If you're just gonna let some machine make all your decisions for you.
See, I can see that you're upset, and if there was someone I could call to override the decision, I would, but I can't because I am that person. Does that track for you? Maybe if Pam hadn't stolen your thunder.
Pam has a 27%.
But the right verticals are watching. Taste clusters exploding.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. And if there's anything I've learned, it's nobody knows anything except the algorithm.
No, I'm not kidding. This is how these people think.
Mm-hmm.
They've literally set themselves up to attract the most amount of attention. And you want to know what gets more attention? People hating on a bad show.
Yep. It's the way it always has been.
Now, to compare this with the whole House of Dragons versus the Lord of the Rings thing, well, why isn't this the case here? Simple. House of Dragons comes from Game of Thrones, which is worldwidely known. It is beloved, ridiculously so. And people expected it to suck
Because of that final season.
Exactly. So when it comes out swinging and it's actually good, people swam to it. Because it initially started out with, oh, it's going to suck, it's going to suck, it's going to suck. Oh, it's actually good. With Lord of the Rings.
With Lord of the Rings, as bad as the Hobbit movies were, they were still mediocre at best.
With Lord of the Rings, we knew it was going to be bad. And nothing about it really hooked anybody. Not its music, not its cinematography, not its story, not its production value. Nothing about it convinced people to look at it. And that's why House of the Dragon is succeeding, whereas Lord of the Rings is failing.
Yep.
People are apathetic to that show, and it's going to disappear under the fiery gaze of a superior show.
Yep. And that's what it deserves. The worst thing that Arch can do is get more people to watch it. And that's what he's doing. That's unironically what EFAP's doing, because I got notes from them too. They largely ignored the argument. This is Mahler's argument against no hate watching. I don't believe in that. I think that's retarded. Okay, explain then, Mahler. I don't think that it's a good argument. Good explanation. Very objective. 11 objectives out of 10. And that was the best. That was the beginning and the end of it. Of course, Rags rattle off too, but Rags is a stupid degenerate, so I don't care what he says.
Yeah, I'm just going to post this here. This is what we should do with the show. This is what we should do with bad shows to begin with.
You know how I feel about this. They're animals, Jim.
Did you put it in to watch together?
There is an historic opportunity.
I did. Alright, are you not seeing it right now?
It wasn't playing on the stream.
Hold on a second, let me try entering it again.
Yeah. Okay, there it is.
Okay, do you see Captain Kirk in the red shirt?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're animals, Jim. There is an historic opportunity here. Don't believe. Don't trust them. They are dying. Let them die.
Be like Captain Kirk and just let them die.
The worst thing that Arch can do is give them any more attention. The worst thing EFAP can do is give them any more attention. But that's what they're going to do, because that's how they make their bread and butter. They're grifters. They're only in this for the super chats. Mahler didn't care about Mandalorian, whether it was good or bad, but his audience expected Star Wars stuff to be bad, so he claimed that it was bad, barely watched it, and he got controlled opposition to make the argument for it because, look, I like Shadiversity, but Shadiversity was his friend. He was never gonna go hard against Mauler or Rags. Same thing with Book of Boba Fett. Same thing with Andor. Same thing with everything that's gonna come out in the future. The fandom menace. Excuse me. This is what tomorrow's video is gonna be about. I realize I'm gonna have to screen record that after we're done, but this is what the fandom menace made their bread and butter, and they don't wanna chance it. They don't wanna make risks.
Yeah, the thing is, the controlled opposition that EFAB got to argue in favor are what I call tourists. In the context of Star Wars, they're people who never really got invested into Star Wars that much. They watched the movies as kids, and they rewatched them again as adults. They didn't really go much further than that. Did they buy the games? Did they buy the toys, the books, the comics? Did they watch the TV shows? No, they didn't. And what they do is they take their very narrow, limited understanding of the franchise and apply it onto everything else. The thing about Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and what have you is, for all intents and purposes, they're not really built upon the Star Wars movies. Oh, they're meant to fit into the same universe, right down to how they feel. But when it comes to their story, they're not. They're built upon the legacy of the Clone Wars and Rebels.
They're westerns, whereas the original ones were space opera samurai movies.
Yes, basically. And so a lot of the things they do are built upon the foundations of those other works that have been a thing for nearly 2 decades. But because people like Shad and what have you cannot be bothered to go check these things out, even just watching clips on YouTube, they will make some truly asinine claims. For example, the fullest extent of the Force should only be Yoda lifting a single X-Wing because he struggled with it. Struggled. Do you not understand that the man literally said, size does not matter?
Yeah, and it's really tame, especially in comparison to the old Legends stuff. You think Vader pulling that spaceship out of the sky is a big deal? It's breaking If we can tell these people never read Legends. In Legends, you get stuff like Darth Nihilus. He nuked the planet by existing.
By literally sucking their souls out and eating it.
And that's just one thing. You got the Yuuzhan Vong. You got any number of... You got Darth... What's his name? The one who was raised by Tuskens.
Darth
Krayt.
Darth Krayt, that's his name. Darth Krayt.
Darth Krayt is almost as powerful as the Emperor is. And then there's the stuff the Emperor does in the expanded works.
For example, in Dark Empire, he straight up nuked a fleet with a giant electric storm. They made an electric storm in the middle of space and used it to disintegrate ships with them. Coincidentally, this is why I think the Emperor could totally take out the likes of Malkador, what have you, in 40K.
This is why they almost ripped that scene straight up for Rise of Skywalker, except he only disabled the ships in Rise of Skywalker. If this was Dark Empire Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker, the Resistance would have lost then and there.
Yeah. Oh my god, to tell you the truth, I think an adaptation of Dark Empire would have been so much better. I mean, we already have like those 2 episodes from that guy who's hand animating, and it's freaking amazing.
Yeah. As amazing as Dark Empire can ever be made, but since we're going into closing, let me read my closing thoughts, alright?
Yeah, go ahead.
Between the weak, half-hearted arguments of EFAP and the internet tough guy act from Art, one thing's clear. Razorfist is right. This is something that those among you who know me over Discord know I very rarely say, particularly on his media takes. Not once was a sufficient answer given to why ignoring bad media is wrong was ever stated. Even on Arch's stream, his co-host, Kibbs, flip-flopped to the side of don't give it views toward the end, and was trying to clue Arch in that, Arch, the chat is going against us, maybe you should dial it back. Arch never got that point. Not once did Arch address any of the chats that countered his point. Not once did EFAP take any counter-arguments into consideration. It's clear that culture warrior YouTubers like Arch and like EFAP have a lot to gain from continuing the culture war. It is not that much of a stretch to say so. As long as there's bad content for them to, quote, review, they will continue to make money, as that is what their, quote, fans expect from them. That is why I will never take them seriously as true critics, just as I do not consider the corporate shills that we usually get as critics either. To quote the movie Ratatouille, in many ways, the work of a critic is easy. We risk very little, yet enjoy a position over those who offer up their work and themselves to our judgment. We thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to read, but the bitter truth is we critics must face is that in the grand scheme of things, the average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than our criticism designating it so. But there are times where a critic truly risks something, and that is in the discovery and the defense of the new. Not once did Arch or EFAP or others in the Grifter sphere like Short Fat Otaku, Ethan Van Sciver, John De La Rose, I'd say the Quartering, but the Quartering is at least honest that he's a grifter if anyone's watched his streams, or others stray from what their audience expects from them. They would not take that risk. It is the critical and reviewing version of cheating. They cheated not only the algorithm and their audiences, but themselves. They did not grow, they did not improve, they took a shortcut and gained nothing. Nothing was risked, and nothing was gained. And it's sad that they don't know the difference.
They don't want to know the difference.
Any final thoughts?
They're not going to change at this point, people. EFAB, Mahler, the rest of them, they built their careers off of hatred. And if you are going to live by the sword, you will surely die by the sword. My advice, stop watching them. Stop caring about them. Stop talking about them. Deprive them of their audience. Do exactly what we said you should do, what Razor says you should do to these hacks. Because, like it or not, they don't care about you. You are cattle. You are livestock to them. And if you don't want to continue being a steak dinner to these people, stop giving them your time.
The sad thing...
Hell, personally, sorry, let me just say this.
Okay.
If you guys absolutely hate Arch, which I'm not at that point yet, I think he still makes decent content, but if you want somebody who's like what Arch used to be in the early days, but is, I gotta be honest, 100 times better, go watch Black Pants Legion. The man... I am not into Battletech. I probably never really will be into Battletech. But the way that man articulates the lore of that universe is amazing. I'm captivated by him. I could listen to his stuff for hours.
Go watch Tracer Craig.
Yeah. Thanks for that. But, yeah. Go find alternatives. Go find people who actually give a damn about their audience.
And if you can't find the alternative, do what Razor said. Be the alternative. Make that fan community yourself. The sad thing is, people like Arch and people like Kathleen Kennedy need each other. Arch needs Kathleen Kennedy to continue making bad Star Wars products so he has content for his channel, and Kathleen Kennedy needs people like Arch to be the villain of their narrative. It's a toxic symbiotic relationship, and all they do is feed each other.
Yes. And if you don't want to be the bottom feeder in the midst of this feeding frenzy, swim away and find calmer waters.
All right. So we done for tonight?
I think we're done for tonight.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Auf Wiedersehen.